Joe Bell. Joe Bell. Virginia with 20 seconds left. Springs in front. The New Zealand wonder has brought the home crowd to its feet.
And Shannon, we said it from the start. You knew he was capable of it. Of anybody on this field, he's the most highly touted. He has the most creativity. And that is a wonderful, wonderful run from Joe Bell. Just dicing up the New Hampshire back line and a composed finish in the box with 20 seconds left.
We posed the question. Bell can certainly set them up, but who will finish the job on the other end? It gets down to the nitty-gritty, and Bell says, I'll do it myself.
Well, you knew that if Virginia could just deploy Bell a little higher up the field, if he could just get a shot, that he was capable of making plays like this, and that's a world-class run from a world-class player in Joe Bell.
Tournament golden ball last weekend, and he appears to have a golden goal here tonight.
Hello everyone, today is August 28th, 2018. Welcome back to the Sixth Man Report. My name is Nathan Morrow, and as always I am joined here with my dad Mark, and we really hope that you guys will enjoy our topics today, so let's get into it.
Hey guys, my name is Mark. We had a very fun and thrilling start to the NCAA soccer season this weekend. Friday night kicked off a host of new games, and we were able to catch quite a few over the weekend ourselves, including this particular Virginia game that we just heard the clip of from just now, which was obviously a very exciting game. It was a very challenging game. New Hampshire, I think you'll agree, Nathan, is a top-notch team, and we certainly have not heard the last of them yet for this season.
Yeah, certainly not. I never really researched into them that much, and I was really surprised when I heard how good they were. They are number 19 in the country, and Virginia's number 15, and they went down to the wire with Joe Bell for Virginia scoring with 21 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, New Hampshire was really giving it to them, man. I mean, it was no easy game for either one of them. It became a somewhat physical game where guys were dropping like flies on that field, and it was no joke. These guys were really going at it. I mean, this NCAA soccer at the outset of this season has already proven to be a very physical, very challenging situation. Let's talk a little bit about Virginia's roster. What do you think? How we talked a little bit about it last week. We mentioned Sergi News is coming back and several other players. And Sergi is a top-notch defenseman. He hails from Barcelona, Spain, and is a senior this year on the Cavaliers defensive squad. And so he is just an anchor, I think that you would agree, for the defense. He had an injury, though, last year.
Yeah, he tore the ligament in his right leg on the last day of winter break last year, playing soccer in his hometown of Barcelona, as you said, and he missed the NCAA tournament, but he should be cleared to play back here in the next few weeks, so we'll be seeing more of him.
It's a shame that they missed him in the tournament last year, but it's nice that he'll be back in a few weeks, and so we'll keep an eye out for him. Prosper Figby had a good game the other day as well, a very physical, big, imposing defenseman who's very athletic. He's very fast, he's capable, he's great with the ball, he makes excellent decisions on the field.
Yeah, he makes great decisions, and I think he's been a key part of Virginia's defense and midfield ever since he was a freshman, really, when Gail Navach finally put him in those games and saw him climbing up the ranks in his positioning and in his skills. And
yeah, being a defenseman in the NCAA soccer league is no easy task. I mean, the strikers, the attackers are of such a skill level that it definitely requires a very capable, imposing type of a figure almost. Prosper Figby definitely fills that role very well. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Bell now, the young man who just scored that golden goal against New Hampshire this weekend. What have you got on Joe Bell?
Yeah, Joe Bell has been a very talented and very skilled player ever since he's come to Virginia to play as a midfielder, and this season for Virginia, he seems to be their captain beside Noose, because Noose has always been the captain before, and now it feels like Joe Bell is stepping up to fulfill that role while Noose is gone.
Those are two perfect candidates for a captain positions on the field, for sure. Both those guys are leaders, just inherently, it seems, and very humble individuals, I might add. They're very clean players that have excellent contact with the ball, excellent footwork, excellent work ethic. You can tell they're very strong. They're disciplined. They stay in position. They don't float around. Their teammates trust them. They distribute the ball masterfully. News, again, that's part of his anchor, it seems, in the backfield, is that midfielders and or whosoever will can play back to these guys confidently and work the triangles up the field. Very intelligent. Both, I would say, have very high IQ for the game.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of these guys have really good IQ for where the ball is on the field, even if they're not looking at it, and they know not to run to the ball. If the other team has the ball, don't run to it. Most of the game, you play zone. You don't play man-to-man. It's not like basketball, which has zone too, but it's different. We'll get into that later.
But it is interesting how, though, now that you mentioned it, how you can watch from the junior high, from the middle school to the high school and into the college level, you begin to see more and more trust being developed between the players. As many parents know, watching their children play soccer, the younger you are, the more you just gravitate to the ball. You don't know how to stay in position. You see the ball and you run after it. Everybody's kind of chasing the ball and playing kickball. So it's nice to see guys trusting each other. I think that's what's so good about competitive sports at a high level, is that guys actually trust each other. They have the skill level to back up their position, but you just can't coach trust. And that's, I think, certainly what creates, a championship combination is trust.
Yeah, like you said, you can't coach trust. Trust comes from experience, from playing the game for however long you've played it. You learn how to trust whoever has the ball and what they're going to do with it. And once you know what they're going to do with it, then you get into position and you try to execute what they're doing. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter how good you are. It's going to work out well in the end.
Right. The key is being able to make plays. And I guess that's the point, isn't it? Being able to make plays. And it takes someone a give and go, a true give and go, something that's highly successful on the soccer field. You have to trust that the person's going to go. That has to happen for it to work.
Yeah, I remember last year that Virginia, when they played against UMBC, that everybody thought that Virginia was going to win. I even looked up on the website, and it had 99% Virginia's going to win this game. But Virginia lost by 20 points because they got down by 10 points, and they started getting scared, and they didn't trust each other like UMBC did. And UMBC, they knew who to give the ball. They didn't care who it was because everybody scored in that game. It wasn't just that one dude that scored and made 50 points. It was all of them. They were spread out through the game. That there was only a few people on Virginia actually trying once they got down because they didn't know who to trust.
Yeah, when you're playing catch up, it's hard. It becomes difficult, and most of the world was expecting UMBC to get pushed back on their heels and backpedaling and having to play catch up from that point forward. And it becomes a game of psychology at that point. It requires a killer mentality, and some parents just aren't into raising their children with that type of mentality. But it is what it takes. You have to be clicking as a team, and UMBC, clearly the pendulum had swung in their favor in that game. The catch-up and the playing on the heels was all on the Virginia side now, and that's something that wasn't expected by anyone, and we all know how that turned out. UMBC, as we talked about last week, everything just went right. And for Virginia, it went the opposite direction. Again, they were playing catch-up. It's hard to come back from certain things, especially when everything's dropping for UMBC.
Yeah, when everything's just going in, and you can't really stop that, especially if you're already broken, then you can't really do anything about that. It's just going to go like it did, 74-54.
All you can do is support UMBC at that point because, it's just the way it's going to go, and that's the way it happens. That's the way life is. And as Tony Bennett said in that clip that we played at the beginning of of last week's show, that's just the way it is in life. I believe that these types of things have a tendency to help the young men being able to lose key games like that where you didn't really lose. You just were beat by the better team. Sometimes we beat ourselves, but that's not what happened that day. That day, the team that was hot clearly came out on top. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. Virginia has so many assets that could have gone well for them to shut down UMBC, but it just didn't work. Not one of them.
The first couple 3-pointers that UMBC put up that went in, Virginia tried to make the points back, but it wasn't going in for them, so eventually it went cold. And
Players know that any player on any given day can come out on top. There are all kinds of factors that go into this, mostly psychological. When some kind of a bug gets into it, which is the goal of any sports team, is to try to look for a crack to exploit in that way psychologically, because talent is talent, and each team, especially at this level, has a wealth of talent. So it's just a matter of who exploits the opportunities the best. And those are things that are difficult to coach, if not impossible.
Like we said before, you can't coach experience, you can't coach trust, because experience builds up trust, and over time you learn to trust people, even if you don't know them.
Football being probably the most important in terms of trust. When you are physically have your bodies on the line like that, and guys are putting their body up on the line to block for you while you're running or protecting the quarterback, it really is the epitome of trust, which makes football an interesting sport to watch.
Yeah.
Whether it's soccer or football, both are sports that are heavily dependent on trust. And again, we'll move on now, but trust, that seems to be something that we'll probably keep coming back to on a regular basis on this particular show. University of Indiana, number 2 in the NCAA in soccer, came to Wake Forest and then played North Carolina. We were able to catch the Wake Forest and Indiana game. Nathan, what did you think about that one?
Yeah, I think that especially in the first game of a season, that a number 2 and a number 5 team, just like Virginia, number 15 and number 19.
These are both two highly touted teams. Yeah, I mean, Indiana being number 2, Wake Forest being number 5.
Yeah, and Indiana was a very impressive team, a very strong team to watch, and we haven't really watched much of their games in the past, so I think we'll start watching those more in the future.
Absolutely. These guys were very fast and very strong, very smart, very fun to watch. And so I have every expectation that these guys could easily meet again later on down the road. By the way, guys, any of these games that we're talking about, Nathan and I usually watch these over on Watch ESPN. Just hit the soccer tab and scroll over to the NCAA tab, and from there, watch any of these games live or as a replay, which is something we prefer to do, as we can move through it forward and backward and watch things more than once if we care to, or be able to skip by if we care to. So it's made it very nice to be able to watch these games in a very fast way. So it's kind of the TV that I always dreamed of as a kid, and I would highly recommend that you check that out. And so that's where the clip came from there that we played at the beginning of this show. Yeah, Wake Forest and Indiana. Indiana went on to play at Carolina, I think the next day or maybe 2 days later.
I think it was 2 days later after they played Wake Forest. It was also a very hard-fought game. If Indiana came out stronger than they did against Wake Forest against Carolina, Carolina is another big team. They're up there in the top 25 teams in the country, and Carolina ended up losing to Indiana in that game 1-0. So they kind of got their revenge for Wake Forest, so they can go back to Indiana with a victory under their belt.
I know you've been doing a little homework on the Carolina roster for basketball this year. Let's jump over into a little basketball talk. And what do you have on North Carolina's roster this year?
Yeah, and as usual, North Carolina has a really strong team, even with the loss of Joel Berry and Theo Pinson. Looks like Coach Williams is making a strong roster this year like always, and it seems he's trying to make Seventh Woods his leadership player, kind of like Joel Berry was last year. The big man this year will be Brandon Huffman, who really showed out at their games in the Bahamas, which the tournament wasn't aired, but if you want to go see the highlights, you can go to YouTube and look it up, and they'll be there. So
okay, well, who's returning for Carolina this year?
Yeah, we have Cameron Johnson returning for North Carolina, who was a transfer from Pitt last year, who did really well, and he did really well at Pitt too. So
yeah, he had a great season last year. It was good to watch him in a Carolina uniform.
Yeah, we also have Luke May returning for the Tar Heels, and he was a very strong player. He might not be the prettiest guy to play against, but he came in very clutch.
He was a total clutch player. I have grown to appreciate Luke May's game. He is a mentally strong person. He is technically sound. He's fundamentally sound. You had mentioned he's strong. That seems to be the operative word for Luke May. Definitely somebody you want to have on your team, and it's nice to know that he'll be there on that roster in the upcoming season.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see Luke May return alongside Brandon Huffman and KJ Smith, who is son of former NBA star Kenny the Jet Smith.
Yeah, that's fun. That's going to be neat to see them. Of course, those of us that are old enough, it's kind of like, oh man, Kenny the Jet Smith's son is at Carolina. That's crazy. But yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting year. I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. My understanding is that Jeff Capel from Duke is going to take over the head coaching position over at Pitt as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see, seeing how 2 seasons ago we got to see Capel stand alone coach Duke, and he did pretty well. I think he did 3-1 for the 4 games he coached because Krzyzewski had back problems. Pretty sure he went to the hospital and he was in rough shape. But
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But I think Capel will make Pittsburgh another threatening team this season, seeing how they weren't very threatening last year going 0-18 in the ACC.
Yeah, that's true, and especially after he gets a couple of seasons